Well, good morning, folks. We are back in the book of Titus with another devotional thought. And today we're not taking it from a single verse. We're going to look at the whole book of Titus and talk about what it teaches about good deeds. So, in the book of Titus, the first thing we learn, that we need to establish this, is that we are not saved by good deeds. In Titus chapter 3, verse 5, Titus says, "He saved us not on the basis of deeds of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy, by the washing of regeneration and renewing by the Holy Spirit." So that's the first thing to know. We're not saved by good deeds. However, Titus does teach us that once we are saved for good deeds. In fact, the book of Titus has a lot to say about good works or good deeds. It's one of the main emphases of this little book. So let's take a look at some of those passages in Titus that talk about good deeds. In chapter 1, verse 16, Paul is speaking about false teachers. And in verse 16, he says, "These false teachers profess to know God, but by their deeds they deny him, being detestable and disobedient and worthless for any good deed." So the false teachers, they're worthless for any good deed. But in chapter 2, verse 7, Paul writes to Titus and he tells him, "In all things, show yourself to be an example of good deeds." And then in chapter 2, verse 14, he says that Jesus Christ gave himself for us to redeem us from every lawless deed and to purify for himself a people for his own possession, zealous for good deeds. And then in chapter 3, verse 8, Paul wanted those who have believed God to be careful to engage in good deeds. And in chapter 3, verse 14, he says, our people must also learn to engage in good deeds to meet pressing needs so that they will not be unfruitful. So if we put all of this together, what is Paul proclaiming to Titus about the nature and the value of good deeds? He's telling us that we should be an example of good deeds. We should be zealous for good deeds. We should be careful to engage in good deeds, and we must learn to engage in good deeds. So if we bring all this down to ourselves, well, how about you and how about me? How about us? How are we doing when it comes to engaging in good deeds, being zealous for good deeds? Do you see good deeds flowing out of your life because of your saving relationship to Jesus Christ? That's the big question here today. When we honestly evaluate our lives, are good deeds flowing from them? Let's do what Jesus commanded in Matthew 5:16 when he said, "Let your light so shine before men that they will see your good deeds and glorify your Father who is in heaven."